cost?
I mean, maybe from my side, as a manufacturer, we're always saying that's the win-win-win situation, to come up with a nice product, with a nice design, which is sustainable produced as well, and in an attractive cost level as well. So I think that's exactly what we as a manufacturer are always looking forward.
You're so far away.
I actually prepared myself this time. I wrote a few things down.
Well,
in
you're
the plane.
German. We expect nothing less.
I know, but and I had enough time this time to actually prepare myself. And I really like this question because for me it's three parts to answer this. The first part is you talk about luxury, you talk about sustainability and inflation of cost. And I think the first thing that we need to look at to answer your question is that we are designing an asset. It's a building, and a building has to be sustainable. So it starts with the first line on the paper, the first ideas, the first brainstorming session with the client is that you set the goal for sustainability. And I think this is something that we cannot ignore anymore. I really like that the Kingdom has great aspiration to implement a lot of sustainability goals for their future projects. And I'm from Germany, so I think all of the LEED ratings, everything is not enough. It's a nice branding effect, but if you really scratch on the surface, it doesn't really mean anything, and I think it doesn't go far enough. We're doing a hotel in Abu Dhabi at the moment, and it's a LEED Gold building, and I can't believe how not unsustainable it is, but how much more we could do, and it would not affect the cost. So I think it comes, first is asset. Asset has to be sustainable, it's architecture. The second thing, sustainability is a huge topic. I don't know how much time we have. The gentleman in front of us, before us, was talking for a long time, so maybe I'll do the same thing today. And because I think it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to differentiate between greenwashing and actual sustainability. And this is something that I think we'll talk about today during the panel anyway, but I just want to set the scene that I really want to dig into this matter because it's really important. And I think from our perspective, what we look at is three elements. It's the substructure, it's the main construction, and it's the fit out. And these are the things that I can control when it comes to being sustainable. So all of these aspects I have to control to make sure that whatever products we're using, whatever structural system we're using, whatever MEP system we're using, that we're using the best for the location, for the climate, and for the use of the actual asset. And then the last thing for me is it's the cost element, because this is another topic that we can talk hours about, because there's two aspects to it. Because we're building an asset, there's an operational cost to it, which is really important for the client. And I think a lot of clients underestimate the life cycle of a building and the operational cost over 25 or 50 years. And in every meeting that I sit in, I only talk about CapEx. And CapEx is really important because it's the budget for the project. But if I smartly design, I can help to reduce the OpEx. And every client should be really happy that I'm saying this, because they are having this building for a very, very long time.
It's really interesting that you touched on greenwashing and these kinds of things, because I think it is important. We hear the word sustainability as a buzzword a lot, I think, right now. But I always tell everybody, you have to start somewhere. And we're literally architecting and building the industries now in Saudi. So it's really important, I think, I don't think it's greenwashing. I think it's a learning. Lucky to have you all from the leading countries in sustainability to help lead the way.
It's very difficult to add anything after Ralph's very well prepared answer. And I couldn't copy his notes on the way here. I think for us as interior designers, it's a little bit more difficult to really be impactful on the LEED certification. I think for us, it's a lot more about designing a building that will satisfy the end users a lot longer, that it will not require a refurbishment after a couple of years. And I think that can be done in multiple ways. First of all, is really having a very strong story that is being told that can be embraced by the staff within the hotel, with themselves are going to allow the existing interiors to last a little bit longer and are going to live with it. The second is, in our case, we try to incorporate a lot of the well building standards in our designs, which have a little bit of a broader approach to sustainability. They look at air, they look at sorry? Yeah, exactly. Comfort, the food aspects, the water quality. There's really a much broader element. And I think one of them that I really liked was the psychological impact as well of an interior. And that's really a little bit, again, it creates an environment that is more comfortable, that is longer lasting, that is taking care not just of one aspect of sustainability, but really allowing a building to be live a lot longer. And thirdly is really build with good quality product that are locally produced. It's as simple as that. I think it's you enhance the story that you're trying to tell, you increase the identity of your property, and you work with local artisans rather than importing from too far.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more on the part of. I mean, there's been a big shift in the development of projects in Saudi and adopting LEED certification on almost every project that we're building now. We're delivering projects in NEOM, in Red Sea, and other parts of the country, and they're all going for LEED certification. It's a step in the right direction. I mean, a few years ago, there wasn't, I would say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, if you looked at the LEED guide for projects in Saudi, you could find only a handful, and now you have tens or maybe hundreds of them. So it's a step in the right direction. But I agree with you. There would be a lot more that can be done. We live in a place that has harsh environmental conditions, and energy is well, now while it's abundant, I think it will soon, with time, it will start to be scarce. So, and going back to the cost point, I mean, yes, making some early decisions that may affect the capex will definitely save tons of money in the long run. I mean, in a lot of the projects that we do, we find that after 5 years, you make your money back. So if you invest in, let's say, a VRV system, it will cost you maybe 20-30% more as part of the capex, but you make your money back in 4 to 5 years, and then it's all savings throughout the life cycle of the project. And this is just one example, and it could be applied for pretty much every single aspect from the building. And I think another area where there could be significant, basically, additions or improvements in sustainability is the adoption of modular construction. A lot of countries, especially in the West, have started adopting modular construction methods, and the benefits to the environment from saving on labor transport, on material transport, on efficiency and time in construction, and on the disturbance of the environment are huge. And I think there would be great benefit in Saudi if we start looking at more and more of these technologies, basically. Yeah.
I just want to add something. I mean, especially for the architects. I mean, aren't we past sustainability design now? Because I think last year we reached a level where the melting of the ice cap was I would say this was not going to come back. So it is going to melt never-endingly. We have 7 years until the non-return of global warming. And it seems that architectural and interior design sustainability, the way we're practicing, is way too slow. I think we actually should now design to prepare for catastrophes. And I think isn't that something that we should also incorporate within the process? So we're still discussing about sustainability the way we used to discuss about it in the 80s. And I think we kind of failed. And I think maybe the way we approach it, the way we talk about it, should also start changing a little bit.
You should have waited to say this at the end of the talk about sustainable design.
I think there has to be a huge, I mean, to your point, huge effort to be done in educating everybody involved in the ecosystem of development, from project owners, project developers, contractors, designers, of course. There's a lot that can be, also suppliers, but there's a lot of value that can be obtained by collaboration and sharing of knowledge. And I believe that, again, there's so much more that we can do in this country to build more sustainable buildings and assets.
I totally agree. I think as well, most of the people, they're not aware of what exists in the market, because the development process is so fast, and that's why I think it's as well quite important that the consultants, interior designers, architects, MEP consultants are working hand in hand as well with new technology which are coming up from the manufacturer. And that's why I think that's the way how we can bring it forward. And you brought up a very good point. How much money initially we are investing and how much money do we spend in operation. So most of the people, what we're facing as a manufacturer, they're always looking how much money they invest initially. They don't care what is coming in 5 years or 10 years or in 20 years. And most of the time they pay much, much more in the long run than to save. They're trying to save initially maybe 10, 20, or 30%.
So I think it's something very interesting. You're all coming from different backgrounds: design, hospitality, construction. So going back around to what all of you all were speaking about, what do you think are some common misconceptions about sustainable design in the hospitality industry?
I think for me the biggest misconception is that sustainable design is expensive. We had this conversation last night at dinner table, and we said, I would like to meet the person who started the rumor, because it's not true. I think that sustainable design is about smart design. It's about actually knowing what you're doing. It's being experienced, understanding different construction methodologies. Like you said, modular is something that is completely underrated at the moment. It has a huge potential, especially in remote areas of this country. Not everything will happen here in Riyadh, but we are building an entire country here, and not everything, the infrastructure might not be in place yet to transport material from A to B over big distances. So I think the more we fabricate off-site and the more we bring it to site and construct it there, it's time saving, it's construction waste saving, and quality assurance. I think this is also something where, if you have 50,000 people on site building a huge project, not always things go in the right way. And I think we have to be much smarter how we do construction. So for me, it's really, you should all forget about sustainability equals expensive. We have to stop talking about this. It's not true. And I'm a big advocate about it. We can talk about it later on, because otherwise, again, I'm going to talk for an hour, and we don't have the platform here. But it's really something that it's really important that we understand it. It's knowing what you're doing, having a really, really open conversation with the client. What are your sustainable goals? What we can bring to the table. And with our industry partners, like Geberit, for example, they are really at the forefront when it comes to sustainable products, and to have them early on in the conversation. And I think this is, unfortunately, in the process of a project cycle, all the experts come in much too late sometimes, when a lot of decisions are made, when we are on site, and when maybe things are already cast in concrete, and it might be too late to change things. And I think I always tell my clients, let's discuss it from the beginning. Let's be open. What is your budget? What is your goal? What do you really want to achieve? And we'll help you with all of this. And if you want to maybe target LEED Gold, why don't we actually get platinum? It's achievable, and it will not cost you this much more. And maybe we'll have all the provisions, but maybe we'll actually only execute it in 5 years' time when you have the money.
So this disconnect that you're speaking about is across the board in the design industry, just FYI.
It is, absolutely. And I think, some of the best projects that I worked in is we had early contractor involvement from maybe concept stage. They knew exactly what we were doing. They were helping us to concentrate on the things that really matter. We were talking to all the suppliers to get them on board, that they would know exactly what kind of products we are using, what are we trying to specify, have all the MEP experts in the room, the MEP contractor, and have a real open discussion on how can we get the best product instead of always separating everything. I only talk to the architect. The interior designer, he'll come maybe in detailed design, because why do I need him earlier than that? And mistakes will be made, and it's so difficult to retrofit a building. It will cost you so much money. But if you do the provisions early on, if you set the mood in the beginning, I think even if you don't want to spend the capex, as I said, you can still do it in 5 years' time and have a better building.
Well, I'll add to that. I also agree with you. In many projects, the importance of contractors and the knowledge that the contractor can bring to the table is overlooked. We get invited to the table just at the tender stage, and our insights and experience are not taken into consideration. And early contractor engagement has adds so much value to a project. And when you talk about sustainability, there's so many things that we can advise, that we can, experiences that we can share that will add a lot of savings on the lifetime of a project. And to answer your question about a misconception, I would say sustainability can be actually cheap. So, as a contractor, we provide transportation to all of our staff to get to their project sites. We like to buy Toyotas, so we buy Toyota Camrys for our staff. We buy all of our cars to be hybrid. Hybrid cars use 50% of the fuel for the same distance that a car can cover, and they're exactly the same price of the full gas cars. So we make that decision. It costs us zero extra money. Sometimes actually it's less. In other countries you get subsidies for using hybrid or electric cars. When we talk about hybrid, this is a very, very simple decision. Saves 50% of our transportation ongoing costs. So.
Just a few things, maybe not on misconceptions, but I would tend to say cheap is often too expensive. We've had some project in Dubai where the value engineering, who is sustainability's worst enemy, has come onto the procurement process, and everything that we had actually locally sourced and locally specified and really being kept very focused on sustainability has been completely redesigned. 6 months later, the operator came back to us and said, listen, most of the stuff that you specified is just very poor quality. We have to replace everything. We went on site, everything had been replaced. And the owner had to rebuy everything for a second time. That is not sustainable, and it's not cheap either. You buy the right quality, the right product right away, something that lasts long, that is really well built, and that is going to be sustainable and cheap. And I think another thing I'd like to add on a misconception in terms of how expensive sustainability is, we're just looking at it from an hotel investment point of view or asset investment point of view. But that's not the real cost of not being sustainable. I mean, all the impact of global warming worldwide is phenomenally expensive. Billions of dollars are being washed away in massive rains, in droughts.
I think this is another huge topic as well. I mean, there is a lot of built asset in the region, and it comes to the point where you have to, I think, balance between, is it heritage or is it something architecturally extraordinary that you need to retain this building, Or as you said, if you do the math, in most cases, it's probably cheaper to just demolish, replace, and come with new technologies, better equipment, and better facade systems, better MEP systems to actually then have a sustainable building. But to add on what Christian said, the thing is, it is on us because our industry is one of the biggest CO2 producers on this planet, and we cannot neglect that as well. We really, as an industry, whoever is part of the supply chain from client, developer, to us, to contractor, to our partners that are specifying our materials within a hotel asset, for example, we are all part of this, and we need to really come together and find a solution for this, because we cannot continue building like we're building at the moment. And I think that this is also something for a country that is so ambitious like the Kingdom, where they want to build a whole country now in the next decade or two, which is very admirable vision and something that is extraordinary because it hasn't happened to this extent and to this magnitude in a long time. That we cannot just build like, unfortunately, the industry is like 100 years ago. We're still building bricks and slabs and in situ concrete, and nothing has changed. And where is the modern technology? Where is that mindset to say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, because there is a limit of how many resources we have on this planet. And you think we have a lot of sand in the GCC, but not all the sand is actually viable to turn into concrete. It's also something we have to be very aware of. And I think that we really have to look at it from a smart perspective, how we can overcome the issues that we are facing, but at the same time that we still can support the vision, because I think it's a fantastic idea to help this whole country to thrive and build new communities, build these amazing giga projects, and put the Kingdom on the map. But I think in the conventional methods of how our industry is going, we cannot achieve this.
And we see this now with even, there's limitation with labor resources. And this is why I gave the modular building example. Modular building can even save on labor. I visited a company a few months ago in Europe, and they were experimenting on using robots actually to put together parts of the building in their facilities. And I think we'll see that more and more with the expansion of the projects, and as the giga projects start to develop, we will see a big challenge and a big issue with the availability of labor resources. So, yeah.
I totally agree with you, Ralph, what you said. I think we need to come early together, all the key stakeholders, to learn from each other, to be willing as well to learn from each other. I think that's the most important thing, because some people, they are quite restricted. However, I think, as you said, modular prefabrication, which is done many, many years in other countries already, is picking up in Saudi Arabia. We are working on many big projects. You were mentioning them before as well. And I'm surprised how many of those projects are willing to invest in prefabrication, modular building, and becoming more sustainable as well, and faster as well. I think it's a start, maybe. Of course, there's much more to do, as you said. I totally agree. But I'm actually surprised that in the Middle East, at least we started, because in some other regions, they're still far, far behind, if you're speaking about that.
I think we all agree the education part and the knowledge sharing part is very important. We'll be able to deliver much more efficiently when if thought leaders are sitting in rooms sharing experiences. I mean, some of the decisions also that inflate costs are also the decisions to expedite the delivery of projects. When we're looking only at time as the main factor, sustainability goes completely out of the window, and we see that more and more and more. So I think sustainability has to be put as the main priority, basically, before delivery, before cost. Because if we put that as the main, the main, let's say, criteria, we can achieve more. We can advise, as contractors, as designers, on ways to save costs, ways to be more efficient. It could become, in my opinion, the cornerstone of successful and not only sustainable in the sense of sustainable buildings, but sustainable to the communities that we live in.
So there's a word that I'm sure everybody on the stage hates to hear, and it's trends. But the reality is, in a region like Saudi, a lot of your clients want to follow the trends. How do you all approach whenever somebody wants you to do a certain trend and keeping your sustainable design in it and implementing your own character, personality?
I'd like to take this one. I think it's I don't know. I know the word in French, but not in English. But I think it's if the shell is built well, and it is well thought through, and is really thought through to be a long-lasting element, whatever happens inside, it's like a museum. So you can have a very well set space, and then whatever you can do, you can refurbish. But I think the impact of the refurbishment or the impact of the train changes is not as exhaustive. And I think can even go as well as doing a very simple, very plain interior and really change some of the elements and build that within your concept. And the beauty of that is, again, the people within the building will take ownership of that and actually will grow with the interiors. So I think a trend is not something frozen in time that you fix and then has to last a certain amount of time. If it's very well thought through, it's something that you include in your design for 20, 30, 40 years, and actually that the building can change like that.
Timeless trends.
Yeah, I think there are certain trends. You see it a lot of Instagram, if I may use the word, where certain things do pop up, and then clients want to have something very similar. And I think we also try to educate them in a nice way, that certain trends are great. I think there is nothing against trends and new ideas, and some will stick and maybe some will not, and then we'll try to guide them in a direction maybe to choose the ones that stick and are becoming timeless. But I think, as Christian said, I think it's really for an asset like a hotel project, it's really important that there is a certain element of flexibility within the design, because over the lifespan of a building, even a hotel will evolve. And I think that this is something that a lot of the asset owners maybe have not experienced yet, because maybe their asset haven't been in operation long enough to see a shift. But a building after 50 years or a hotel that is 50 years old might not have an opportunity to have a big spa within the premises or wellness components, because this is where the direction is at the moment in hospitality. It's about fitness, wellness, longevity. It's about holistic approach of not only giving you a great bed and a fantastic shower and good Wi-Fi, but it's really something where people go away from home to indulge into something where they go home and feel good about. And I think this aspect is very difficult maybe to implement into an existing structure where there's no flexibility. So it comes back to structural systems. It comes back to maybe MEP provisions, having wall systems that can change easily without creating a ridiculous amount of waste, but maybe it's a plug-and-play system. There's so many amazing products out here. I'm sure if we would all go together, we'll find a few here in Index that do exactly these things. And it comes back to education. It comes back to people maybe not knowing about all of these things. But I think this is also something where maybe the budget can be adjusted a little bit in the beginning if you have the conversation. As I said, it's about communication. and giving the client the choice and tell them, maybe you will add a ballroom in a few years' time, or maybe the ballroom will become something else, or you need another restaurant. And if you think about this smartly in the master plan, in the beginning of the setup of the project, it doesn't cost you anything because you put the provisions in place. And then later on, you can add on, or you can refurbish, or you can do things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to tear down the building. And I think this is really, for me, the point that I'm trying to get at is that I think that sustainability goes beyond just using a product that gives me a water flow on the tap. It's really important, don't get me wrong, but I think it's really holistically, it's everything from master plan to the building to the interior. We have to think it through.
I think you brought it quite on the point, because that's what we face as well as manufacturer, that the design element is very much on color driven, finishes and whatever. And you were mentioning quite well, Christian, before, it's more about the core products behind of the wall where no one can see it, and people are willing to invest a lot of money in products which are visible, different kind of colors, finishes, whatever. However, if you want to really be sustainable, we need to look much further. Products behind of the wall, what is hidden in the ducts, and so on and so forth. Water saving is a big topic. I mean, we are in a country, in a region where we don't have too much water. That's a huge topic. So all these kind of points, I think, and that's why, as we discussed before as well, we need to come early together to share maybe the know-how of the different kind of key stakeholders in order to implement this and make sure we have the right budget and specify the right products, and then go through, of course, and into the implementation. I think that's absolutely key, and not just look at the finished product, the tap in front of the wall, look as well where is the water coming and how much water are we going to use.
It's really interesting because I've been listening to all of the panels for the last two days, and they're all complete different topics, but everybody's saying the same things. And the same thing is that there's a disconnection with everybody, and it's from the young designer to the very seasoned construction designers, hospitality, all the way to the top. It's quite interesting.
It's funny, for such smart creatures, humans, we know the problem, we know the solution to it, but we fail at communicating and getting the problem solved,
I just come back on. I want to bounce back on the trend. I think one of our chance is that sustainability is becoming a trend. As such, I think this is really something that is being put forward and demanded by, in our case, by hotel users. This is really something that is put forward and that people really do seem to appreciate. And secondly, put this on TikTok. That's it. And I think beauty and
quality. You guys are living your best life.
Beauty and quality does not run out of trend. I mean, Versailles, to name it, to rename a building that was put forward before, or Frank Lloyd Wright's Waterfall House. Those are still beautiful buildings. And I think this is where great design doesn't really fall out of trend. Well thought through design does not fall out of trend and lasts much, 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 much longer.
So I always like to talk about the user experience, the user journey for everything. Whenever you guys are approaching topics like this, how do you research the customers and their experience within realms like this, within the luxury, in the hospitality design?
TikTok, most of it. Okay, in our case for hospitality, I think there's already a lot of very well set guidelines that are actually put forward by the operator. They really have a very strong understanding of what their customers expects from their brand and so on. So I think a lot of that, just reading the guidelines, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's 50% of the design done. So I think this is one of that element. In our case, what we try to do is really understand who the customer is, who the end user is, and then really try to tell a story that we base on multiple elements. So we have three pillars in the structure of our design and narrative. One is really looking at the geographical aspect of a project. We try to understand where it sets, what the story being told, what is experienced. We look at the historical setting of a project as well. Was there somebody famous or some famous element that happened in there? And the last one is maybe the social aspect. Is that property being in a very famous neighborhood? Is it around a very famous hotel or restaurant owner? And then we try to combine those elements and create and juice out some new story that is really unique and based on that. And again, I think I would like to come back to the staff of the hotel. In reality, we always attempt to design only for the end user, and that's a big mistake. I think we should design an hotel property, in our case, for the user to embrace. And they will actually then, if they experience, if they're happy in it, if they feel comfortable in it, they will actually really create that sense of luxury that you want. They will be able to enhance and make more durable the story that you actually started to tell. And actually you lose your original story, and that's the best design. If they take over the story and really carry it along, then you've been successful. I think that's and TikTok.
I think for us, it's the first thing that we look at is, of course, is the location of the asset. Where is the hotel going to be? Is it a city hotel, a business hotel? Is it a resort hotel on the beach? So I think it has different customer experiences that are expected from a property. And a business hotel is more about efficiency. It's a speed of checking in, is finding your room, going to the MICE components, getting a taxi. All these things are, I think, maybe on a higher priority than in a resort hotel where you come and you have much more time. You have a seated experience. You have first to have a drink, and then you get escorted to your room, and maybe depending on the brand, you check in your room or in a separate lounge area. And I think for us, it's, of course, we need to understand the brand. It was much easier maybe 20, 30 years ago where there was much less brands. Now there's this explosion that every operator suddenly has 50 sub-brands, and then there is luxury, upper luxury, ultra luxury, and you're trying to understand who are these customers now. What's the difference between a luxury brand and an ultra luxury brand? What is the difference between the two users? And so, of course, we are getting educated ourselves. I mean, the brands, as you said, they have very good brand guidelines. We're studying them. We have lots of conversations with the operator team. And I think we're very lucky that we live in a region where there's an excess of luxury hotels or hospitality assets. So you can actually go every day. Christian and I could go in Dubai into so many different hotels and see what the experience is. And of course, it really comes down to the staff at the end of the day. And this is why I always have a conversation with our clients. For me, there is no separation between front of house and back of house. If the back of house is not designed properly, if the staff is not happy, if the food's not good for the staff, how are they going to treat the guests? And so I think it's really important that there is a certain budget in place for a proper back of house, which is the lifeline not only of the operation of the hotel, but there might be 400 or 500 people at all times of the day that are going to canteen, they're going to the changing rooms, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think this has to be considered as well. This is a completely different project for us because it's extremely important, but it doesn't have the touch points of the guest. They are supposed to never see it. There is no crossovers. There is complete separation between what's happening behind the wall, not only in the MEP system, what is the system behind the wall, but also what is actually, where's my food prepared, where's my laundry being done. Nobody sees that. But it's my job to make sure that this is done properly in the right way and that the people that are using these spaces also feel really well. And I just coming back to, because I like the WELL system when we come to WELL building certification, because WELL has a police. They come in and inspect the building repeatedly after the building is operational and handed over. And if you don't adhere to the regulations, they take the certificate away. Where LEED is you apply for it, to pay for it, but if you actually execute it, is up to you. So it's
I want to add on what you, because actually I researched what I tried to memorize and I couldn't. So basically, the well building standards is really very interesting, because I'll read what it's here. Well measure attributes the building that impact occupy health by looking at 7 factor concept. But it's a real very, very broad element. It looks at the quality of the air, the quality of the water, again going back on the elements, the nourishment, being emotional or in terms of food. It looks at the light, the quality of the light, and again, I think a very great way to be sustainable is create a design that is not just about quantity of elements, but it is architecture and well lit. It looks at the fitness of a person, how well they can interact, they can move within the building, the comfort and the mind. And I think this is it's a much broader and much more sustainable way of looking at a building. Sorry.
I know we're way over time, but I'm not finished yet.
It's his fault.
I just wanted to add something, and I have to say this because it's also, a lot of people point globally the finger at this region. And I think what people outside of this region that actually don't know really much about the GCC or the kingdom specifically is that it's a place where we cannot rely on local resources. So for us, it's not as easy to build in wood or localized materials that we get 50 kilometers away from. So I think that this is something where we will have to try really hard to be very sustainable in this part of the world, and we are doing it step by step, and it's maybe not as fast as I wish, but I think we're doing great steps forward. But we also have to take a little bit of this pointing finger away, because we actually don't have the luxury of having an abundance of natural resources in this part of the world.
They're going to cut your mic now, Ralph.
I think we do the next panel for tomorrow and we stay here and continue.
So we don't have time for questions and answers. So if you have anything to ask our panelists, I'm sure they would love to answer it. But I would love for everybody, before we end, to maybe just have some tips, some last words for everybody.
I mean, like I said earlier, small decisions can make a big difference, and just switching the mindset about consumption and starting to adopt, easy things that are, technologies basically that are now affordable, will go a long way. So you mentioned the water tap. I mean, now automatic water taps cost as much as regular taps. So why do we still use regular taps in some commercial spaces? This is a very simple thing that could save a lot of water. So just very starting adopt and even takes take any step, even if it's small, will make a difference.
I just have a little on a different edge on tip. I think just make sure that people working with you and around you and who you work for realize how urgent that the matter is. It's really a matter of a couple of years before it's absolutely too late. And I think once you start realizing that, then it is a lot easier to actually try to improve things. So I would say, talk to your staff, expose your staff to the urgency, expose maybe your client if you can, but really be aware of how urgent the matter is.
I said enough.
Maybe I just wanted to say, I think it's important to be open, transparent, and to be willing to learn from each other. I think that's the most important thing. And then I think we're going to have a great future.
Thank you all so much. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody else did. Thank you for your time, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Estra.